Welcome to Urban Art Space. My name is Sunir Irvine. I'm an education intern here at the gallery, and today's lesson is going to be a one-point perspective. So we're going to create the illusion of space and depth. The materials that you're going to need include a pencil, a straight edge or ruler. You can use colored pencils for this project, or you can use markers. You should also have blank paper. You can have a couple of sheets to make sure that in case you make a mistake, you can use the back, or you can start over on a new piece of paper. Your pencil should have an eraser, and we'll start off with the pencil today, but I will probably switch to a marker later so that it shows up better in the video. The first thing we're going to do when we create this project, we're going to start off with our blank piece of paper. I'm using a full-size sheet. I'm working on a table, which is pretty easy for me to work on. And in order to create our horizon line, there are a couple ways you can do this. Some people like to just use the ruler and draw a straight line from one side of the paper to the next in order to create the horizon line. But one way that I find is pretty easy is taking a piece of paper that is landscape and then folding it in half. And when we fold it evenly, it's going to show us where the line would be. You could still use your ruler, but this will help you if this is your first time and if you have trouble drawing straight lines. So now I have this fold here, and I can rest the ruler in that place. I'll just make sure that I line it up so that you can see it and draw your line. When you're using pencil, it might be a good idea to draw light lines so that it's easy to erase. And once we've drawn our horizon line there, we'll put a center mark to kind of determine the middle of the picture. So this is our vanishing point. So you could use an X, you could use a plus sign, whatever you like in order to indicate what the vanishing point might be. And our vanishing point is going to kind of show where things get smaller or further away in distance in our image. So with that vanishing point being there, the first thing I'm going to do, I'm going to draw a diagonal line from that vanishing point to the left corner of my page. And this is going to be the beginning of my street and sidewalk. I will then draw another line, and I'll make it about 1 fingernail space towards the inside to determine where that's going to be. I'll do it the same width for the other one. I'll use a finger to kind of space that out, make a little mark there so that I can see where I'm going to draw the next line. So I'm going to start from the vanishing point, line it up with that mark that I made. Do the same thing on the opposite side. So now I have a double line on each side, and now this gives me space to create a street. So this area here, this will be where the street will be, and we will draw some vertical lines in order to create a sidewalk. So in order to do that, We'll make sure our ruler is straight up and down. I'm going to draw a line here. Draw a line there. Right now I'm using the width of the ruler to create the distance for the lines, and then I may go in and add more. It's important to use the ruler to make sure that your lines are straight. Because if your lines aren't straight, some of your sidewalk pieces may be crooked, but you can always fix that by erasing the line and starting over. Okay, so right now it looks like a fence, and I'm going to use another finger space to create, maybe use 2 finger spaces, like 1 inch high, to create a mark on the side. Do the same thing here. We're going to draw another line. That's going to be the top of our sidewalk. And again, I'm drawing these lines right back to our vanishing point, the center part of our image. Now, in order to create our sidewalk lines, we're going to have to create straight horizontal lines. So line up your ruler, make sure it is straight, or your straight edge. Okay, we're going to continue with our horizontal lines for our sidewalks. So again, you want to make sure that your ruler is lined up and it's straight, because we're going to draw our lines across. So it looks like when I was drawing the lines to break up the sidewalk on the right side, they're slightly off. So I'm going to go back and fix that. So I'm just going to draw my straight line here, connect it, draw another line here, and then I'm going to move this vertical line here so that it matches up. Move up to the next line. And again, these are on both sides of my sidewalk. The lines are slightly off. So I'm just going to move this line up a little bit after drawing the horizontal line here. First on the left side, and then I will go ahead and draw in that line going across on the right. Erase this vertical line here, and then just move it there. So it's good to have a pencil or an eraser so that you can fix any mistakes that you might have. All right, and I think I'm not going to fix this line here. I'm just going to add a new line here to match that side. So I'm going to draw my line going across here, line going across there, and I'm just going to put in a line there. drawing another line going across here, put one here. And then draw in that horizontal line. So now we have our sidewalk, and we have our line, and we have our curve, and now this is our street. We can draw in our dividing lines. Probably 2 will probably be good for that. So I'm just gonna lightly just kind of draw in those lines on the ground. So it'll be like a rectangle almost, except for it's gonna be wider at the bottom. And you can use your ruler to do this, or you can just kind of freehand it. I'm gonna freehand it and maybe go back over it later. But you're doing the same idea as you would with the sidewalks. If I was to put my ruler here from the vanishing point and line it up with the side of that dividing line, I could use the ruler in order to create the dividing line a little bit more accurately based on that. Line it up here, just kind of following that same line. Fix up that dividing line a little bit. And then go ahead and fill that in. So that's our street. Next thing I'm gonna do, I'm gonna draw a tree over here on the left side. So I'm gonna use my ruler just to kind of figure out where I want the trunk to be. And I'm going to put part of it about here. The other side be about here. I'm not worrying about it being a perfect straight line because it's a tree, of course. And when I think about the height of my tree, I can make the height whatever I want. I'm gonna kind of use my vanishing point and figure out where I want the top of my tree to be. And I'm gonna just draw some dash lines, or you can do dots just to kind of figure out where you wanna place that. And you can determine how tall or how short your tree is going to be just by moving the ruler up and down. The guidelines kind of help you with figuring the size. So when we're doing this 1 point, everything that's closer to the vanishing point is going to get smaller, and everything that's far away from the vanishing point is going to get bigger. The same thing works for our tree. So this tree here, which is close to the front of my picture, I can determine how tall that trunk is going to be. And then I can think about the canopy and where that's going to be in my picture. So I'm lining up my canopy with those dotted lines. I'm just going to lightly draw in that shape. Then I'm going to go inside and erase this line going across. That's the horizon line. And now that I've erased that, I can kind of make little roots going into the ground. I'm gonna go over all of this with my marker so that you can get a better look at it. as we're working on this project together. So I have one tree. If I wanted to add another tree, my tree would be a little bit smaller, and following kind of those same steps and using this guideline, I would have a tree maybe a little bit further back. So I'll just start kind of like drawing what the canopy, where it's going to be at. I'm going to go through that horizon line. Erase the inside part of that, and then I can just kind of draw in my trunk. And now I have another tree here. So I have two trees. So now I don't need that guideline anymore. I'm going to erase those dashed and dotted lines because I no longer need them. And I might get rid of some of these roots. There might be too many roots here. You can draw as many roots as you want, or you can just keep it simple and just kind of draw a rounded off bottom for your tree. And there you have it. So I'll draw in these marks a little bit more so it shows up a little bit better on the video. And you can draw your trees in any style that you want, just using very basic kind of rounded shapes here. Do the same thing for this one, kind of fill it in a little bit darker with a pencil. All right, our next step is going to be to draw one or two buildings on the right side of our project. And with that, we want to make sure that we're going to line up our ruler using the edges to make sure we're drawing straight. So like with the trees, when we did the guidelines to kind of figure out where the top of our trees were going to be, we're going to do a similar thing here with our buildings. And we're going to go ahead and pre-make our guidelines for this. And I'm just going to line the ruler up towards the corner. I'm going to make my buildings a little bit taller than the trees. You can make your buildings any size that you want, but for what I'm going to do, I want to make sure that, at least on my project, that they're a little bit taller. So I'm going to draw in like some little dots or some dashes, whatever makes sense to you in your project, so that you kind of get an idea of how high you want things to be. For the buildings, I just decided to use the vanishing point and the corner of the paper to draw in the guidelines or little dots or hash lines, whatever makes sense to you as a guideline, so that we can determine where the top of our building is going to be. So for this project, it looks like I'm just going to create maybe one or two buildings. We're going to start off with a big building first, which is going to be towards the foreground of our picture. So the foreground is what will be closest to the viewer and what appears closest in our picture. So I'm going to use my ruler here. I'm going to first draw the right side of the building. And so I'm just going to line my ruler up. I'm going to figure out a place to begin drawing. Now, some people, they like to just line it up here on the sidewalk. I'm going to give my building some space between the sidewalk and where the building starts. So I'm going to go about a thumb space up, kind of draw my first line. I'm going to draw all the way up to the guideline, and I'm going to stop. Okay. From this bottom point where I made my first line, I am going to line my ruler up to the vanishing point and draw a portion of my building in alignment with the sidewalk. And that's about 3 finger spaces in, about 1.5 inches. And I'm gonna stop. I'm gonna line up my ruler again, make sure that it's straight. And I'm at the point where I stopped, and I'm gonna draw a line going upwards, a vertical line, up into the guidelines that I drew. And there's the second part of my building. And using the guidelines, I'm gonna fill in the top part of my building. Okay. And now, in order to make the building look full, realistic, we're gonna draw the same types of lines we did on our sidewalk. We're gonna draw some horizontal lines going across. So I'm gonna line up my ruler at the bottom of my building on the first mark that I drew, and I'm gonna draw a line going across right off the side of the page to give our building form. I'm gonna do the same thing at the top. I'm going to line up my ruler, make sure that it's straight. And I'm gonna draw another line, horizontal line going across. And that's going to be my building. And now that I've completed this, I'm going to get rid of the guidelines up here at the top because I don't need them anymore. I'm also going to erase the horizontal line on the inside. And erase one of those guidelines that I don't need. So now I have one building here. I can go in and I can add a doorway. I can add a few windows. I'm gonna try to see if we can squeeze in one more building here. Adding one more building, it's gonna of course be smaller than the building that's here. This building appears bigger because it's in the foreground of our picture. So what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna put a space between the building that I have and the next building that I'm gonna draw. And I'm going to, for the second building, I'm going to go back to that bottom part of the building that I drew first to kind of create the bottom part of the smaller building. And I'm just gonna draw like a line right there. So this is gonna be the bottom. I still have that finger space in between, so I'm gonna line up my ruler with this point here and the guideline, make sure that my ruler is straight. And I'm gonna draw a straight line all the way up to the guideline. And go do the same thing for the back end of the building. So where this line stopped, I'm gonna line up my ruler. Make another straight line. I'm gonna fill in the top of the building using the guidelines that I did. Now I can erase these guidelines here because I don't need these lines on the side anymore. And I'm gonna do the same thing I did to this building. I'm gonna draw some horizontal lines to square that building off to make it look like it's a real shape. And in order to do that, I'm gonna draw lines across like we did with our sidewalks and like we did with our first building here. I'm just gonna run it into that other building, and it will give the illusion that there's a building behind our first building. And that you can actually walk in between the two of them. So the good thing about perspective drawing, this is really good if you're interested in comics. This is good if you're into realistic or architectural drawing, or just drawing in general. It will help you with your backgrounds, and if you're interested in drawing cities or blocks, or if you're interested in drawing houses, 1-point perspective is a good way to get started in learning how to do that. So right now we have 2 buildings, 2 trees. We can draw in a few clouds. So I like to kind of just draw kind of like straight lines at the bottom, and then like a little bit of curve, and then another sort of straight line, and then go back to the end and draw like a kind of curvy line at the top. If you want your clouds to look like they're further back, you would want to probably draw smaller clouds to make them look like they're further away. Draw another cloud here. And part of it might be in behind that building. Okay. If you like to draw bubble clouds, you can draw your bubble clouds. Some people, when they're doing this type of project, they like to put the sun like right here. So at this point, I think we're pretty good. Well, we'll leave our vanishing point marking there until the very end, because we might want to fill in a few doors or something like that. So you have a choice here. We can put a door on this side of the building, or we can put a door here. You can have multiple doors. So you can use your vanishing point to kind of help you out, similar to how we were drawing the guidelines for the tops of the buildings. You could do the same for the tops of your doors and the bottom of your door as well. So the side of your door, we'll just go ahead and put a door on the front of this building. It's going to work pretty much like the sides. We're going to draw vertical lines here. You can kind of like freehand these and use a vanishing point to kind of determine the top of our door here. So I'm going to use the ruler, kind of like line it up. This is probably the tricky part, putting in the windows and doors. So that's what a door would kind of look like on the side. If you wanted to do another door here, you would just kind of like draw your vertical lines. And this will be a little bit different. You could use the vanishing point and kind of figure out where the top of your door should be, or you can just kind of eyeball it and fill it in. It's a little skinny, so I'm going to make it wider. Now, on this side of your building, you could do some windows. Just draw in some squares. If you did some windows on the side of the building, you would kind of want to use your vanishing point a little bit to fill in the windows. You could draw one big window. To save time. And use the vanishing point to fill in the bottom window part. Fill in the bottom of that window. So for your first time, the windows could be a little bit tricky, but if you're using a pencil and eraser, you can just fix whatever you need to fix. You can erase, draw it over again. And because of how it's drawn, our eyes are gonna immediately recognize that it is a window. And when others look at your artwork, they'll see that it's a window also. So I think I'm going to change this, make it a little bit longer. And we can do the same thing here for this building. We can figure out where our door is going to be. Maybe we're just gonna have a door here versus having two. So the doors that are on this part of our building are easier because we're not necessarily messing around with drawing things at an angle. But we might use this to kind of determine where the top of our door is going to be. And so I'm using my vanishing point to figure out, like, this is going to be the top part of the door. But other than that, I'm going to draw a straight line. And then I'm going to draw a horizontal line, make sure it's straight with my ruler, almost all the way to the edge. And then I'm going to draw another straight line just going down. So that's going to be my door. I can draw in a few windows. So there are my windows. Not 100% perfect, but good enough for what we're doing today. So right now we have 2 buildings, 2 trees, we have a few clouds. I'm not gonna have a sun in my project. I'm just gonna kind of erase parts of the vanishing point that I don't need. And kind of fill in those lines to kind of give the illusion that that street is continuing on. There you go. So that is our project. We're going to start adding in some color. And I'm going to use magic markers. I have Crayola markers with me today. You could use colored pencils. I do have colored pencils, but I'm going to use marker so that it shows up in the video a little bit better, and so that you can see what it was that I did if you're having trouble seeing it on the video. Okay, so this is our 1-point perspective that we've done with pencil. We use pencil to do our initial drawing. Here in the center, we established a vanishing point in order for all things to make it look like it's going to get smaller. So just to review, when we did our sidewalks, we drew our lines coming out from the center of our picture, which is the vanishing point. This part here, where the sky and the grass meet, that's our horizon line. So we did that by folding our paper in half and then drawing a line in pencil to do that. We colored everything in with Crayola markers, but you can use markers, you can use colored pencils, you can use pencils and markers, you can use crayons, whatever you needed to do in order to get your project in full color. In order to create the tops or the height for our trees, we used our ruler to kind of determine what our height was going to be, and we used a guideline that we created in pencil that we later erased to determine how tall our trees were going to be, as well as the height for our buildings. So essentially kind of what we did was we just used our corner of our paper to kind of determine where the height of our buildings was going to be for this particular picture. You can create any kind of height you want for anything that you create in your 1-point perspective. You can use the corner of your paper, or you can make some other sort of measurement based on what you like. So the trees, the height for the trees was a little bit different. I wanted my trees to be a little bit shorter for this project, so I lowered the height from the corner about a couple of inches so that the height would max out right about here. But feel free to experiment on your next 1-point perspective. This should give you a good start. And thank you for tuning into this video. I hope you enjoyed this project.